Evening all, lovely people, fellow travellers. Welcome to the Neil Oliver Show. It was cold in Scotland this week, bitterly so. There was snow on the hills in the month of June. This is not unusual as it happens, but still you feel it. Makes a person waken up and pay attention. The weathermen said that cold wind blew down from the Arctic. It made me think about the so-called climate crisis. The crisis the authorities and their lackeys keep squeaking about. The one we're told is all our fault on account of the cows and our gas boilers. That we're to blame for it. That crisis they used to call global warming. Despite the snow in Scotland, there were headlines about it having been the hottest May on record here in the UK. Record temperatures, apparently. So there you have it. Get told one thing, but see with your own eyes and therefore actually know something else entirely. While you're at it, ask the gardeners about the weather and the climate in Scotland, in Britain. Ask the farmers as well if you want to know what the weather has really been like. So I was thinking about how it was bitterly cold with snow on the ground in June, when at the same time we're being told by officialdom that what we're really experiencing is record high temperatures, a world at boiling point. All of it made me notice for the umpteenth time how we're routinely told one thing when what we feel, what we actually experience is the opposite. And then I saw a headline in the Daily Telegraph. It read, COVID vaccines may have helped fuel rise in excess deaths. COVID jabs and excess deaths linked in the same sentence in an establishment rag after all these years. After all these years when to say as much was to invite censorship at least. After all these years of so many of us knowing there could be something wrong with those jabs, having read independent data on the subject, for example. All the time, the establishment and the scientists and the media smeared anyone saying no to those experimental gene therapies was a dangerous granny-killing loon, apparently. Those COVID jabs are still available. Of course they are. For the elderly, for the young. And then came that headline. Not the one about snow in June, the one about COVID jabs and excess deaths. There was more news from the Scottish COVID inquiry last week as well, including testimony from Age Scotland, a national charity for the over 50s, about countless people being contacted by their GPs to see if they would accept DNA CPR orders, which is to say, do not attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Which is to say thousands of people were being asked by our NHS to accept that if they were to get ill, they should not expect paramedics or anyone else to help them. If their heart stopped or if they stopped breathing, was it okay with them if nothing was done to get their hearts going again or to get them breathing? The examples offered by the director of Age Scotland were chilling, he said. I would say as chilling as the wind that blew in Scotland this week. A 101-year-old war veteran from Glasgow who had a knock at the door and opened it to find an official handing him a piece of paper telling him to keep it by his bed. When his daughter found it later, by chance, she saw it was a DNA CPR, that her father was hard of hearing, and since that might make it hard for medics to communicate with him, it would be better if he just accepted the inevitable. All the time we were told it was about saving Granny. Or the 50-something woman, Fit, a runner who was contacted by her GP surgery to ask, since she too had hearing loss, if she would accept a DNA CPR. I'm certainly not having a go at Scotland here, far less the Scottish COVID inquiry. On the contrary, fair play to that inquiry for doing what no other equivalent has done, which is listening to the truth of the horror story that played out when the madness was fully in control. There was testimony too about care homes applying DNA CPR notes to every resident in their care without consent, a blanket decision taken to write people off. You might say sentencing them to death, even before any of them were ill. These were people locked in, many extremely distressed and vulnerable almost by definition. I say again, remember all the guff about how people from oldest to youngest, from centenarians to newborn babies, not forgetting pregnant women, had a duty to take those products in order not to kill Granny. Remember that? All the propaganda about the unjabbed being Granny killers in the making. I would say the testimony from the Scottish COVID inquiry, and let's accept it lightly, provides a glimpse of the picture across the rest of the UK. We just haven't heard the rest of it yet. I would say the reality laid bare by that inquiry suggests the authorities, more accurately, might as well have been saying, don't kill Granny, because that's our job. I say a cold wind has blown throughout the land, that it started in 2020 and that it's been blowing ever since. I read that headline in the Daily Telegraph, disgracefully long overdue, and know it comes as late as snow in Scotland in June. The same team that pushed the nonsense about COVID, about the jabs, about the need to lock down the entire country for months on end, to cover every face with a paper mask, to follow magic arrows on the floor tiles of shops, to stay 6 feet apart, the rule of 6 or of 9 at funerals, all of it. It's now clear the same team went on to spout nonsense about everything else, insisting the war in support of Ukraine was a war to defend democracy, when there is no democracy in Ukraine and all that's being defended is the money-making potential of the already rich. Telling us wind farms, solar panels and electric cars are green, saving the planet, when all of the above require the wholesale pillage of irreplaceable ecosystems in pursuit of rare earth elements, much of the work done by child slaves to make giant turbines that can't be recycled and must be buried in the soil at the end of their 20-year lifespans, along with the defunct solar panels full of toxic lead and cadmium, all of it certain to leak poison into the land and then the groundwater. None of it seems green to me. All of it looks, on the contrary, only about greed. More and more of us are aware of all this and talking about it. More and more of us have seen that whatever it is we're told about COVID, about war, about the climate, it looks like the opposite to us. Even as the truth of the so-called vaccines bubbles to the surface, the World Health Organization relentlessly pursues the globalist dream of overriding national sovereignty and putting all the most important decision-making regarding our lives into the hands of an unelected, unaccountable cabal. It's also obvious now the falsehoods, the offering to us of a false narrative with false flags for good measure. By now their bluff seems to run along the lines of hoping we just accept that while the mask has slipped and we know and they know we know, they're hoping to tough it out by shrugging as if to say, what are you lot going to do about it anyway? Those totalitarians have long since seen to it that they have it all. The money in private, secretive, unaccountable hands, the judiciaries, the mainstream media, the police, the civil servants, not to mention all the guns and all the drones. They've persuaded themselves that it simply doesn't matter what the hoi polloi think, far less say. It's the 80th anniversary of D-Day, when the thousands died seeking to gain a toehold on a European continent usurped by Nazis. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau dared to cast his shadow on Juno Beach, a graveyard of heroes, while he spoke about democracy under threat. Quote, "Our way of life didn't happen by accident," he invited himself to say, "and it won't continue without effort." This is the same Justin Trudeau who welcomed an actual Nazi, a veteran of the Waffen-SS, into the Canadian Parliament and joined every other parliamentarian in the room in giving him a standing ovation after hearing that same Nazi celebrated for his efforts to fight the Russians in World War II. The same Russians who were Canada's allies, all our allies, against Nazis. Don't forget, Trudeau is also on record describing those who challenged vaccine mandates or otherwise demanded the return of their freedom as racists, misogynists and right-wing extremists, seizing bank accounts in the process. And then this week I swallowed down more of my own gorge while supposedly British politicians like Sunak, Starmer, Mordaunt and others offered empty platitudes about sacrifice and defending Britain. More of the same politicians that have presided over a Britain without meaningfully defended borders, where our children are taught in school that British history is shameful history, that it's the history of imperialism and colonialism and endemic racism, where anything and everything from maths to the countryside is racist. Those politicians and others like them are from a class or perhaps an ideological clique that is embarrassed by what Britain has always been, embarrassed by the very sight of the British flag, a clique that stands by while patriots profess allegiance to that self-same Britain that the D-Day veterans and the D-Day dead fought and died to defend. They say one thing, that political class, that self-important hollow clique, in the run-up to yet another of the pantomimes we call general elections, while by their actions or inaction they see to it that anyone with a sense of place, of heritage, of culture, of belonging to what has been Britain the Britain of their fathers and grandfathers, is belittled at best or accused of hate crime at worst. Here's the thing, they and their kind, posturing as patriots, have betrayed these islands, dishonoured any ancestors who served, and sold the rest of us out to their paymasters, the elite. They betrayed us when they locked us in our homes. They've sold out those who love the homeland, who love family, and want little more than to raise that family in peace, with the freedom to aspire and make the best of themselves without the ceaseless interference of the state. Snow falls in Scotland in June on a planet said to be at boiling point, and the awakening wind blows cold, cold enough to have us open our eyes to the hypocrisy, as though hypocrisy was a big enough word to describe the behaviour of a dying animal so corrupted in its death throes that it dares to overlook the fact we will still be here with our heritage, our culture, our language and our faith long after they are gone.